Marcus King was a man who knew the meaning of hard work. Born and raised in a modest neighborhood on the south side of Atlanta, he grew up with the deep rumble of engines in his ears and the smell of motor oil thick in the air. As a boy, while other kids rode their bikes or lost themselves in video games, Marcus could be found elbow-deep in busted engines behind his uncle's garage. It was there, with scraped knuckles and grease-stained hands, that he discovered his gift. He could fix anything with a motor. By the time he was 15, Marcus could take apart an entire engine and rebuild it better than new. It wasn't something he was taught in school. He learned it by doing, failing, and doing again. His mother, Patricia, worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table after his father disappeared from their lives. Marcus knew he couldn't rely on anyone but himself. The men he respected weren't wearing suits or driving fancy cars. They were mechanics, welders, and laborers, men who knew the value of work done right. By his mid-30s, Marcus had built a solid reputation. He was working at Benny's Auto Repair, a small shop on the outskirts of Atlanta, and he was the guy people asked for by name. His hands were always dirty, his boots always worn, but his work was clean and his name was good. Still, when he closed his eyes at night, he dreamed of more, his own shop with his name above the door. A place that was his. He'd saved every dollar he could, but it wasn't enough. He needed $100,000 to make it happen. Banks didn't lend to men like Marcus. No collateral, no safety net. So he worked and he waited, and then, one night, everything changed. It was late when Marcus finished his shift at Benny's. He was tired, his back ached, and all he wanted was a hot shower and sleep. As he drove his old Ford pickup down a deserted road on the city's edge, he noticed a car parked on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking in the darkness. At first, he thought about driving on. It wasn't a safe area, and it was late, but something made him slow down. As he approached, he saw a woman standing by the car, pacing. She looked out of place, dressed in a tailored business suit, her hair perfectly styled, frustration etched into her face. Marcus sighed and pulled over. "Evening," he called as he stepped out. "Looks like you've got some trouble." The woman turned, wary at first. But seeing Marcus's calm expression and the honest look in his eyes, she let out a breath. "You could say that," she replied. "The engine just died on me." Marcus nodded toward the hood. "Mind if I take a look?" She hesitated, then gave a small nod. "Sure. At this point, I'm not picky." Marcus popped the hood and leaned in. It was a quick diagnosis, a loose connection in the wiring. 10 minutes, tops. He fetched his tools from the back of his truck and got to work while the woman stood nearby, watching. "You know what you're doing," she remarked. Marcus smiled slightly. "I better. I've been working on engines since I was a kid." "Well, I appreciate it," she said. "I was supposed to be home by now. Big day at work. Closed a huge deal. I should be celebrating with my family. Instead, you're stuck out here." Marcus finished with a nod. "Life's funny like that." Within minutes, the repair was done. Marcus stepped back and wiped his hands on a rag. "Give it a try," he said. The woman slid behind the wheel and turned the key. The engine purred back to life like nothing had ever been wrong. She exhaled in relief and stepped back out. "You just saved me," she said, gratitude softening her sharp features. "No big deal," Marcus shrugged. "Happy to help." She reached for her purse. "Let me pay you." Marcus shook his head. "No need. Just glad you're safe." She looked at him for a moment, as if she wasn't sure what to make of him. "At least give me your card," she said. "I might need someone who knows what they're doing." Marcus pulled a slightly worn business card from his back pocket. "I work at Benny's Auto Repair," he said. She took the card, studying it. "Elena Matthews," she introduced herself, holding out her hand. "Marcus King," he replied, shaking it. "Well, Marcus King, I owe you one," Elena said, a genuine smile spreading across her face. "Drive safe," Marcus replied, stepping back as she drove away. He thought nothing of it after that. He'd helped strangers before. That's just who he was. But fate had other plans. The next night, Marcus was working late again. Everyone else had gone home, but he stayed to finish a job on an old Chevy that had been giving him trouble all week. The shop was quiet, the radio playing softly in the background, when he heard the low growl of a car pulling up outside. He wiped his hands and stepped outside. A black Rolls-Royce was parked in front of the garage. Out stepped Elena Matthews, this time dressed even sharper, more polished. But she wasn't alone. A tall man with silver hair and a custom-tailored suit stepped out next. Marcus recognized him immediately. William Matthews, a titan in the business world, owner of Matthews Industries. The kind of man who could buy and sell entire companies with a phone call. Elena smiled as they approached. "Evening, Marcus," she greeted. "Evening," Marcus replied, curious but cautious. "Didn't expect to see you again so soon." "This is my father, William Matthews," she introduced. William extended his hand. "My daughter told me about you," he said, "and after what I heard, I wanted to meet you myself." Marcus shook his hand, firm but steady. "Pleasure." William smiled. "We're not here for a social visit," he said. "May we talk?" Marcus led them into the garage, offering them stools by his workbench. It wasn't much, but it was his space. William didn't waste time. "Elena told me about your skills. More importantly, she told me about your character, how you turned down payment when you didn't have to." Marcus said nothing, waiting. "I believe in investing in people," William continued. "I'm offering you $100,000 to open your own shop. No strings, no loans, no debt. Just an investment in your talent and potential." Marcus stared at him, stunned. He'd spent his whole life scraping by. This kind of opportunity didn't happen to men like him. "Why me?" Marcus finally asked. "Because I trust my daughter's instincts," William said simply. "And I trust what I see in you. Skill, integrity, and drive." Marcus looked from William to Elena. She gave him a small nod. "We believe in you," she said. Marcus took a deep breath. He'd spent years dreaming of this moment. Now it was real. "All right," he said quietly. "I'm in." 2 months later, King's Custom Auto Works opened its doors on a prime lot near downtown Atlanta. The sign above the door was sleek and bold. King's Custom Auto Works. It was his name, his place. Business boomed. The reputation Marcus had built over the years followed him. Old customers brought their cars, and new ones came in droves. He hired a small team of trusted mechanics. Elena visited often, offering business advice and encouragement. She wasn't just a client anymore. She was a friend. Sometimes it felt like more than that. William checked in occasionally, but he never meddled. He had kept his promise. This was Marcus's show. One evening, as the sun set behind the shop and the last customer drove away, William stood beside Marcus, hands in his pockets. "I told you," William said simply. "You were worth betting on." Marcus smiled, looking up at the sign once more. "Yeah," he said quietly. "You were right." And in that moment, Marcus King realized something powerful. One small act of kindness, stopping for a stranger on a dark road, had changed everything. But this was just the beginning. Bell, if this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Let's keep sharing these stories that remind us how one small act can change a life forever. Bell.